Let's talk about bullying at school, because apparently classroom bullying can have long-term serious mental health consequences for children well after they've left. A new survey today suggesting half go on to experience issues such as anxiety, self-harm, even suicide.
The Anti-Bullying Alliance says that bullying has become a public health issue and teachers and medical professionals need better training to deal with it.
17-year-old Patsy Elliott endured years of bullying when she was at school and online, and she's been speaking to Breakfast's Jane McCubbin.
It first started when I was in year 2, and it was just little petty things like, I don't want to be your friend. Year 7s, it was, you're not going to get a boyfriend looking like that. When it got to mid-secondary school, where it was drink bleach, go get hit by a bus, your family doesn't even like you, you're not going to get anywhere in life, your life is pointless, just go die. It made me feel isolated, lonely, really just insecure. I self-harmed, and I thought about just committing suicide because I thought, well, my life isn't worth living. That's what they made me feel. At first, the school didn't listen. They didn't believe me. They didn't help me. I didn't tell my mum for a really long time, or my nan, as I just didn't want to bother them with anything. I thought that it happens at school, I'll come home, my family's here, it's a safe environment for me. But it wasn't, because I'd go on my phone and they'd be there on a text, they'd be there on Facebook, there was messages, there was just no escape from it. When you feel isolated, you just feel like you're in a dark tunnel. And if someone says to you, I believe you, I will look into it, then there's a little bit of light shed because you feel, I'm being listened to, I'm no longer alone. It just gives you a little bit of faith, so it gives you a little bit of light at the end of your tunnel.
It's Patsy there, talking to Breakfast about her own experiences. Let's talk about this a bit more, shall we? We're joined by David Watkins, who's an assistant head teacher in Runnymede in Surrey, and by Lauren Seeger-Smith, who's from the Anti-Bullying Alliance. Morning to both of you.
Morning.
Thanks for coming in. It's heartbreaking for anybody to hear that sort of story that Patsy was explaining there. Lauren, how common is bullying? Can we put a figure on it? Can we say sort of how many kids are out there suffering in silence sometimes?
So a Department for Education survey last year of 13,000 13-year-olds showed that around 40% of children had been bullied in the last year, and around 8% were being bullied daily, and that equates to about 2 children in every class being bullied daily, which is what we term as severe bullying.
David, how easy is it to spot?
Well, in our opinion, it's very easy because of the amount of training that we have had as staff, and also the anti-bullying programme that we run in school.
The reason I asked about how easy it is to spot is because we hear stories like Patsy's, and we often hear adults saying they had an awful time in school and how it's affected them. And this latest report showing the effects of that. So if it is that easy, how come it's still so prevalent?
I think the key is for any school or any educator is to let the students know that they're there to support, like Patsy said in the video there. The moment she knew that she had someone to talk to was when she started to feel as though she was receiving help. So any school, very much like our own school, we need to make sure that all students know exactly how to voice their opinion and raise any concerns that they may have. And of course, central to that is the entire student body, which is what the school is all about, of course. So
tell us, what have you done in your school, practical measures that mean kids know what they can do and who they can turn to?
Yeah, I mean, it's been critical, the support that we've had from the anti-bullying programme that's run by the Diana Trust, the Anti-Bullying Award Scheme. So it's essential, really, that we recognise there are external bodies who can help develop us as a school, and we've been doing that now since 2012. We've really empowered
What do
students.
they do? What kind of things do they do when they come?
Well, first of all, making sure that students are the centre of everything that we do. So we've made sure that students get training on how to support their peers, on how to recognise what bullying is, and then to be able to give advice to give students that safe place that they feel that they can come to and look after. So we've run a number of schemes that allow students to, both the bullied and the bullies themselves, to run a restorative programme to make sure that people feel supported and we develop young people to be proactive in the community.
Lauren, For anyone who is being bullied, there is often a feeling of isolation that comes from this. And then, so it's almost making that step. How do you get to the point where someone feels comfortable enough to say, speak to a student coordinator, or speak to their parents, or speak to someone who can help? How do you break those barriers down? Because that's the essence of bullying, isn't it? Isolating someone, making them feel as if they're not part of the group and they don't belong.
That's right, and there are some young people who are then particularly vulnerable. If you've a child with special educational needs or a disabled child, it may be even more difficult to communicate and let people know what's happening. So this anti-bullying week, we were really talking about making a noise about bullying and empowering young people to speak out about bullying. But what that needs is for adults to listen and then to respond appropriately. So the week was also about supporting teachers, like Andrew, to make sure they respond appropriately when young people do report bullying, to believe them, take it seriously, and make sure that situation's resolved.
And then it's tackling the longer term effects, which is something that's been highlighted in this report. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the report that we did found that in a group of 16 to 25-year-olds, those that had been bullied, half of them said that they'd gone on to experience mental health difficulties such as depression and anxiety. And so it's really important that young people, both in the short and long term, are supported to deal with some of the feelings and impact that bullying has as well. So we've been talking about really skilling up GPs and health professionals to understand more about bullying and the impact of bullying, and to work closer with education to make sure young people are supported both when it's happening and then in the longer term to deal with some of those things that affect your self-esteem, your ability to hold down a job, your personal relationships. It really affects all areas of your life.
Thank you both very much indeed. I think we're going to talk about it with you again a bit later, and we'll hear more from Patsy later too. And if you have experience of this, maybe years ago when you were at school, you can tell us about the impact it's had on your life. Do get in touch. Patsy there talking to Breakfast about how bullying's affected her. So what's the answer? Joining us now is David Watkins, who's an assistant head in Runnymede in Surrey, and Lauren Seagar-Smith, who's from the Anti-Bullying Alliance. Morning to both of you.
Morning.
Lauren, you heard Patsy explained it so well herself, but I mean, how common is her kind of situation in schools today?
We know from research from the Department for Education last year, 13,000 13-year-olds, that around about 40% of young people experience bullying over the course of a year, and around 8% experience bullying on a daily basis, which equates to about 2 children in every class experiencing bullying daily.
We've had many emails from our viewers this morning in reaction to this. Sue has said that she was bullied at school in the UK over a period of 3 years in the mid-60s. This was at a time when there was no real awareness of bullying, certainly no intervention, and she says, I suffered unspeakable mental torment and unhappiness. And this is what the report is highlighting, the consequences of being bullied and that not being addressed while at school.
Absolutely. So we know from international research and for a poll the Anti-Bullying Alliance did for Anti-Bullying Week that of children who are bullied in school, around half of those young people go on to experience mental health issues in adulthood, such as depression, anxiety, real sort of sense of social isolation. It has a really long-lasting impact.
David, what are you doing at your school to try to combat this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge that all schools face. At the Magna Carta School, what we found massive success with is working tightly with our students. The key is that the students want to make a difference. They certainly want to stop bullying at any level. There's a zero tolerance approach, both from staff and students who work closely with the Diana Award. And they've come into school to help train our anti-bullying ambassadors. We've got 30 year 10 students.
So that's starting with the kids themselves, helping one another, spotting the signs.
Exactly. There's no tolerance for it amongst the students, and that's the best thing. They want a safe place to come and learn and develop and be the best they can be.
Do you agree with this? Peter's emailed saying that school teachers must listen to complaints from children when they're bullied. Today's teachers have to learn that bullying is a crime in a child's eyes and they're responsible for anything that happens to that child.
Naturally, we want both as staff and as students to be upstanders, not bystanders. We want to encourage students to be able to talk. Now, sometimes a student might not feel comfortable talking to an adult, so that's why we have our anti-bullying ambassadors. The first step is making their voice heard, and like Patsy said in her video there, the moment she felt listened to was the moment she started to feel better, and that's what we want to achieve at the Magna Carta School.
Okay, thank you both very much indeed, and thank you to Patsy as well. Thanks for all your messages this morning.